Well, hello and welcome to my latest video. Quick recap. I did a 200 kilometer Audax, my first official Audax, a few days ago. There's a video about it. There's also a video about the preparation. There's also a video about the lessons that I learned. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was on the ride I had three punctures in my tubeless tyre, and I said I wanted to do a video about the tubeless tyres, about the issues that I had and the lessons that I've learned or haven't learned, and why I am rapidly falling out of love with tubeless tyres. Now, let me show you, where shall I start? Here's the tyre, first of all, and this is an IRC Boken gravel tyre, tubeless ready, 40mm. So a pretty strong tyre, and you would have thought that would be quite tough. And here's the wheel that I was using. This is a Hope 25 wheel, and well, there it is. The tyre was on the wheel. So we'd gone about 35 miles, reached the first control point, which was the services on the M2. Wonderful place if you've never visited. Lots of tourists there. Quite a nice place for a day out, I would have thought. And we'd put the bikes against the fence, and I went into Greg's and I bought a sausage roll, sat down on the bench, ate the sausage roll. We finished and got ready to set off, went over to the bike, and the rear tyre was flat. Now, when I say flat, I mean flat as the earth probably is, completely flat. So I thought, oh shit, what's all this about? So I had some of those anchovy things in a Dynaplug pill and tried to put one of those in, but couldn't really find a big hole. The other problem that you've got is if the tyre is completely flat, it is virtually impossible to put in one of those anchovies, because if you imagine you have a balloon, you blow up a balloon, you get a pin, you stick a pin in the balloon and it bursts straight away. Now imagine the balloon is not blown up, it's just a balloon. You prick it with a pin, it's not quite so easy to penetrate, and that's one of the problems with the rubber. If the tyre is completely flat, it's very difficult to insert an anchovy, and in any case I'm not sure I really found the hole. So you can't start to think, why is the tyre completely flat? Anyway, we're in a bit of a hurry, so can't spend ages faffing about. So I had a spare tube, so I put a tube in. So far, so good, except, guys, most of the bikes that I ride have got 28mm tyres as a maximum, so my tubes are naturally 25 to 28mm tubes. And I hadn't really thought in all of my preparations that this was not exactly the right tube for a 40mm tyre, so I blew it up. But the tyre was a bit deformed because the tube kind of doesn't quite fill the tyre properly. Anyway, that wasn't necessarily a problem, although it looked a bit weird from behind as I was cycling along. So anyway, I carried on, and then I had another puncture. Same tyre, puncture in the tube, obviously. Luckily, my friend Andy on the Audax ride with me gave me a tube. Changed the tube. Okay, so far so good. Not feeling particularly happy about the situation, but we carry on. And then I have another puncture, again in the rear wheel, in the tube, and you think, well, what is this? So I'm inspecting the tyre, thinking, well, there must be a hole in the tyre. I couldn't plug it with the bacon strip, so I've got some tyre boot, and I'll stick the tyre boot on, but I couldn't find the hole. Andy was checking the inner tube, and he said, I think this hole, or the hole in the inner tube, is on the inside of the tube. So he inspected the wheel, and this is the wheel, the Hope wheel. Nearly lost the thingamabump there. And he said, I think where the rim tape, this plastic tubeless rim tape is, it's a bit sharp at the edge. And he said, I think that's what's piercing the tube. So he happened to have some electrical tape, well prepared Andy was. He had some electrical tape, so I put 3 layers of electrical tape on there, push the tube in, push the valve in, put the new tube in, and that worked until I got home. So then you think, all right, so I've had 3 punctures. Why is this happening? And more to the point, why did the original puncture happen? Why was the tyre completely flat? Now, there's only 3 reasons, I think, that the tyre could be completely flat. One, there was a problem with the valve. Well, if there was a problem with the valve, it would have had a problem before. So I can't see that that's being the issue. The other issue is that the tyres become unseated from the rim. But I can't see again how that could have happened, because if it had happened, it would have happened before. So the third reason, and the only reason I can think of, is that there is a hole in the tyre. So I'm inspecting the tyre. Now, one of the things that I noticed, changing the tubes and the tyre in the not raining but pretty damp weather, is that the tyre is slimy, but there isn't a load of sealant in the tyre. So you think, hang on a minute, there's supposed to be sealant. So you look at the tyre, and you can see here, right, sealant, congealed sealant. So there has been a puncture there, and it has sealed it. There's a little bit there. There's been a puncture there, and it's sealed it. There's another bit. Where's another bit? There's another bit there. Not a very big bit, but a bit. So what's happened? There's another bit there. Look. So what's happened is that I've actually had quite a few punctures in this tyre. And I haven't been riding this on gravel. I've been riding this on roads. All right, roads in Kent, which are not the greatest roads. But you think, why am I getting these punctures? Now, that might explain why the sealant didn't fill the first hole in the tyre, which occurred at the M2 services, because there wasn't actually any sealant in the tyre. Now you think, oh, come on, Julian, why didn't you check the sealant? Well, the sealant had been in the tyre for no more than 2 months, 9 weeks, 10 weeks perhaps. So it hasn't done that many miles. Okay, it's done a fair amount of miles, because I've done quite a lot of riding in the last 10 weeks or so. So I know you're supposed to check the sealant, say, every 6 months or so, but here's my advice to you guys. If you're going out on a long ride, check your sealant, and if it's difficult to check your sealant, just put more sealant in, because you never know, that could be an issue. So the only thing I can think of that happened is there was a hole in the tyre, although why there's a hole in the tyre when the bike is standing, not moving, just standing on its own. I didn't put the bike down on a nail or a pin or something like that. There's a hole for some reason developed in the tyre, and the air all came out completely from the tyre. Now you'd think there'd be a pretty big gash for that to happen, because if it's a small pinprick or something in the tyre, not all of the air is going to escape that completely, and it was completely flat. Not a bit flat, not a bit soft, not a little bit, flaccid. It was completely soft. It was completely deflated, as my mood was. Now, if I check through this tyre, and you're checking through this with me, you're looking at the tyre, you're looking at the screen, you're thinking, Julian, we've got the solution for you. And the solution isn't just, why don't you use these tyres because they're wonderful. Other tyres, I mean. And I can't see any. I mean, I'm really going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb, or why you would use a fine-tooth comb to find a hole in a tyre is anybody's guess. But I'm going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm going to try and find a hole, because somewhere or other there is a hole. Now, it could be, of course, I suppose another other possibility, is that there was a hole, and what sealant there was sealed the hole. Well, no, it couldn't have done, because if all what sealant there was had sealed the hole, then the tyre wouldn't be flat, and the tyre was flat. So my problem with tubeless tyres, one of my problems with tubeless tyres, and I have endless problems with tubeless tyres, but one of my problems is if something goes wrong and you don't know why it went wrong. Because then you start to think, you lose your nerve. Do you know what I mean? You lose your nerve. You don't want to be riding along thinking, I'm going to get a puncture, I'm going to get a puncture, I'm going to get a puncture. Because that just destroys any enjoyment that is left on a ride. You just don't want to think. You want to feel that your equipment is going to work, your tyres are going to be fine, your tubes are going to be fine, whatever it is. So, sum up. If you're going to use tubeless tyres, make sure that you check your sealant and you top up your sealant. Secondly, carry a tube, because you never know when you might need a tube, but make sure that it is the right tube for your tyre. And the third thing is clinchers. Use clinchers. Use a tube. And as I carry a tube anyway, so when I'm using tubeless tyres, I haven't saved myself the faff of carrying a tube. If I'm going to carry a tube anyway, I might as well use clinchers and put a tube in the tyre. So what am I going to do now, you ask? Well, I'm going to try and put this tyre back on the rim. I'm going to see if I can seal it on the rim. I'm going to see if that works. I'm going to see if that helps me find the hole in the tyre. If I cannot get a solution or an explanation of what went wrong, I will probably go back to using clinchers with tubes, and I will give up my experiment with tubeless tyres. I will say it's like an affair. You know what was that slogan for that dating website? Life is too short, have an affair. Life is too short, don't use tubeless tyres, right? It's like you have an affair, you strayed, right? It was good for a while, you enjoyed it, the sex was great, blah, blah, blah. But in the end you thought, no, I'm going to go back to the missus. And I'm not talking about myself here, by the way. I'm very happily married, love my wife Jane, love my kids. But my affair with tubeless tyres is like brief encounter. It's like John Mills and well, I've forgotten the lady's name. Celia Johnson. That's right. John Mills and Celia Johnson. John Mills is me, obviously. Celia Johnson is the tubeless tyre. And Celia, as the tubeless tyre, she's on the train. Right? Rachmaninoff is playing, and she's dabbing a tear from her eye like that. And he's a doctor. He's on the platform at whatever station it was, and they're waving goodbye. And that's me, and that's her, and that's the end of a great romance. So, thanks for watching, and see you next time.